What if Mega Aggron was in Gen 1 OU? Now, regular Aggron was quite literally the second what if video I ever did. I still remember now, after I did what if Great Tusk was in Gen 1 OU, I had like 2 hours where I just ranted to my little brother about how I thought Aggron was super interesting. And it was. So it feels very fitting to finally come back to that. Especially now that I'm at 952 subscribers. I'm getting so close to 1,000. And really just shows just how far I've gone. And I'm proud of that. And luckily Mega Aggron, one surprise, is a huge improvement from regular Aggron. In some ways, it's kinda taking some steps that Steelix did for the Steelix video. Which, if you're wondering what I mean by that, for the Steelix video, one thing I complained about is how Onyx had really bad stats. They could have buffed Steelix a lot, but they gave a lot of defense to, or a lot of points to its defense stat. And I complained about that since Steelix became slower than Onyx, and way more importantly, only had a base 85 attack. So a lot of those points in defense could have gone to attack instead, which could have made it an actual decent attacker. Mega Steelix does something similar here, where you have 180 defense, and then you bring it up to a terrifying 230. Now, this is nowhere near as bad, because for starters, they went from 110 to 140 attack, so that already isn't like that bad. It's not like Onyx, who had completely abysmal attack, and then they buffed it, sure, but still not buffing it to a point where it can really be a big threat to anything that isn't weak to stop Earthquake. 110 at base attack is already pretty good, but having 140 means that it's pretty close to how strong Taurus's attacks would be with stab, I think. I think you need 150 to be as strong as Tauros with normal stab, but 140 is pretty close. Another thing is that, because of you being a pure steel type, that just makes your high defense a lot better. So having base 230, I don't think there's actually a problem with that. In fact, I like that a lot more. Because with that typing, you are suddenly just the physical version of Chansey, for all intents and purposes. You're just incredibly tanky. Earthquakes, you can tank very easily. And they also buffed the special defense from 60 to 80. That's pretty huge. And it makes you just a little bit better as a special wall, which is great, because along with resisting normal, you also resist ice and psychic. Those are literally the 3 most common attacking types in the game. Granted, electric still hurts, especially with crits, but like I said, Earthquake you can tank decently well. And that special attack is not that bad by Gen 1 standards. It means with coverage, you can use it to fight back against things you wouldn't normally have a way to fight against. Now, regular Aggron has the rock typing, which had some merits, but also some disadvantages. Having stab rock slide is cool, and quad resisting normal with Hoister's defense is really funny. But having a weakness, or a quad weakness, that Earthquake is super bad, to the point where Aggron was kind of forced to use Surf, just so that it could do a lot of damage to Rhydon, which sucked a lot. Luckily, Mega Aggron does not have to worry about this. Granted, Aggron, he will still take a lot of damage from Rhydon's Earthquake. Both of you, as you'll see in the replay, will 3-hit KO each other. However, it's nowhere near as bad. To be honest, you can maybe avoid the Rhydon matchup altogether, it's probably just easier. But Earthquake will hit decently hard, and I'm sure Ice Beam will hit even harder. But you can use Surf if you want, but I didn't include it. The main moves I have, and the main two I think will always be a must-have, is Earthquake and Thunder Wave. Earthquake will always be your main attacking move for that 140 base attack, which is pretty good. And you are pretty much the bulkiest Thunder Wave user around. I guess it's debatable since Chansey is a little bit better at following special moves than you are following physical. Or actually, I don't know if that's true. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell which one's better. But it doesn't really matter too much, because Chansey has high HP, you have higher defense, and you're... Actually, no, Aggron's a better tank. Because Aggron can tank physical and special moves better than Chansey can. Chansey can't really take too many physical moves, and like I said, two most common special attacking types you resist. It's not a better special wall than Chansey, but overall just a much better tank. And one thing I forgot to mention, but it is pretty cool, is that normally Mega Aggron suffers from wanting to be a very tanky Mega, but not being able to use any items means you don't have any good recovery. Oh, what's that? There's no items in Gen 1? That's actually great news. You really do wish you had leftovers still. But if nothing else has leftovers, then it's not that bad. It just makes you a much better version of Executor in terms of being a tank, since you don't have a reliable recovery, other than Rest. Speaking of which, Ice Beam and Thunder Wave are probably your best moves, like I just said. You're the tankiest Thunder Wave user. Ice Beam, I think it's going to be its most common coverage move. And even though Hyper Beam is right here, I think Rest is probably going to be way more popular. Rock Slide you can use for fighting against Zapdos exactly, I guess. Fire Blast is good since, even though you're already very tanky, it can just be pretty useful to be able to tank things and then threaten to lower their attack even further. And I actually really like Thunder on this guy. Thunder is good for the water types, especially for Cloyster, which you can 2 a KO. And because of how bulky you are, just like with Chansey with Sing, or Zapdos in Gen 2, you can afford to miss some Thunders. So having the extra firepower can make up for the somewhat low special you have. So I think the most common Aggron sets will have Earthquake, Thunder Wave, Rest, and either Ice Beam or Thunder. But having Fire Blast to threaten physical attackers more, or having Rock Slide to do better against certain matchups, I can definitely see. Maybe even Surf, so you can beat Rhydon a lot easier. Who knows? Mega Aggron is pretty versatile, and it really enjoys being able to do what it always wanted to do, which is be a really good tank. And when it's not only the only Steel type in the game, but also the only Mega, yeah, that's pretty good. A lot good, actually. So, let's get into the replays now, shall we? By the way, as we watch this Tauros try to fight this Aggron, as you see there, Earthquake doesn't really do that much. But at the same time, Earthquake does about the same amount, or your Earthquake. So that's kind of awkward, but still. At the very least, or actually, no, I guess crits are still going to be pretty dangerous. But paralyzing the Tauros is already good enough. Like, that can already probably give you some wins alone. So Aggron can also just be like a Pokemon that paralyzes stuff and then pivots out, unironically. That sounds pretty good. Aggron doesn't even need to fight things 1v1. It just needs to act like a wall, which it very much can do. And I'm surprised Tauros didn't get any crits this replay. But that surprised me even more, probably. The fact that Tauros managed to do 256 damage exactly. For those of you who don't know, if you do that amount of damage, you can no longer use moves like Recover or Rest. So that's a little bit funny. But Tauros definitely had to use a few power points there. It got paralyzed in the process. So what if you use Fire Blast instead? Well, obviously you will hit more damage. I think I said it very weirdly. You can miss a little bit more, but also burning the Aggron is really good. Granted, even in a worst case scenario, Aggron is a pretty good Pokemon to just spam Ice Beams on. Even if they don't do damage, you can definitely fish for a lot of freezes. So Fire Blast, it's just like Earthquake or Thunderbolt. It's a good coverage option. It will definitely catch some people off guard. But I don't think it's going to be completely mandatory. Because Aggron can also be just worn down. And this one is weird. Because even with a burn, it takes a lot of hits for Aggron to really kill Snorlax. Which means Snorlax can always rest off. And if that's the case, I could even tell you which one would actually win that fight. Because the special moves only do about 17. I think Earthquake does a little bit more, but not that much more. So it's a could go either way. But while these two are fighting, can I remind you guys that you should definitely click that subscribe button and like the video? I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month. But like I said earlier, I'm already at 950 something. I think 52. So you can help me. And I would really appreciate it. I try to make videos like these every day, along with Generation Jumble videos. So you get to see more wacky scenarios, like Amnesia Snorlax, who, surprise surprise, does better than regular Snorlax, because you're hitting Snorlax's, or Aggron's special defense, which is even not bad, at 80. So it's better, but even then, Snorlax still needs to... It takes a while for it to actually set up those amnesias. But granted, Aggron can get a few attacks in, maybe fish for a crit or two. Probably won't happen. In fact, in all honesty, you would probably switch to something else. But even in a worst case scenario, it's not unwinnable for Aggron. But it definitely needs to get lucky. But overall, Aggron can completely wall physical sets. Amnesia sets, not so much. So like most Snorlax against whatever Pokemon, it's a could go either way. The same can be said for the two best tanks in the game. They can paralyze each other, and both have base 50 speed, so they literally have a speed tie, which is kind of funny. So this fight literally just comes down to crits from Earthquake and just paralysis luck. It can go either way. Chance you can get unlucky and you can get some Earthquakes, or maybe you get a crit, or Aggron gets unlucky and can't rest off the damage. Or it's a level 85 Chansey and it uses so many seismic tosses that you can't rest. That one's a joke, because in that case, Aggron's always faster, and you better believe it can most likely 2 KO you. But it's funny to think about. I don't have much else to say. It's just... Or actually, I do know one thing to say. These two working together with, like, maybe a Cloyster for a freeze, like, immunity. It does become unkillable, basically. Imagine Skarmory from Gen 3. But now imagine that both Pokemon are not only debatably even more tanky, but both are more dangerous offensively as well. I don't even want to think about that. It's just absolutely terrifying. I am so glad I can't think of any good way to put Aggron in a Generation Jumble. Because Mega Aggron would be scary. Not as scary as a Cloyster hitting Clamp. But I didn't really want to do that for the replay, because I thought it would be kind of boring. But obviously, you can imagine, Clamp makes Aggron's life a living hell. But if Cloyster does miss, Thunder Wave can be annoying to Cloyster. As you saw there, Thunder is just a 2 KO. And that's why you gotta use that instead of Thunderbolt. Because with base 50 speed, it's not like you can reliably count on a great Thunderbolt. Not to mention Thunder is just a more fun move, don't at me. Now for Executor. For both of this and Jinx, if there's no sweep clause currently going on, obviously you can put Aggron to sleep, but not even that annoying since Aggron's the best pivot in the game. But if you ignore that, or if a Pokemon's already put to sleep, well, even then, I would still call it a great matchup, even if Aggron doesn't have Ice Beam. Without Ice Beam, Earthquake isn't going to do that much. But to be honest, I don't think it's as big a deal, because not only do you probably have something else that can do at least decent damage, you can still paralyze the Executor, and the Executor can't really hurt you. Double Edge does nothing. As you saw there, Explosion did nothing. Psychic could be annoying with special drops, but Aggron is really good at stalling out your Psychics. Mega Drain ain't gonna do anything. And Leech Seed is absolutely pitiful chip damage. So I'm gonna call that great, even if you don't have Ice Beam. And most Aggron sets will probably have Ice Beam. And for Zam, there's always crits, special drops, and paralysis, but Aggron can more consistently damage the Alakazam, since with 140 attack, you can 2-shot it, which is really good. It's not a consistent 2-shot, but good enough. Like, definitely good enough to where Zam can't really risk, like, trying to get those crits or those special drops, because Aggron does too much damage. I'm not sure if Hyper Beam is worth it on any sets. Maybe for like Chanseys or for Zams, so it is a guaranteed 2-hit KO, but I'm not sure. Hypnosis kind of makes or break this. As I said before, Aggron doesn't care too much about sweep in the first place. So Aggron can paralyze Gengar. Gengar hates that. Gengar can maybe explode, but if Executor's explosion only did 20%, I don't have any hope that Gengar's, even with a crit, will do that much. That's what happens when you take base 230 defense and you have it. Even if you have that, what would that be? Would that be, like, literally 115 base defense? That sounds pretty darn good. Now, Jolteon's interesting, because Thunderbolt is a 3-hit KO, Earthquake's a 2-hit KO, but a crit is pretty likely on Jolteon. So call me wrong, but I'm pretty sure this should count as it could go either way. And I find that neat. It's not often, I think it's only happened one other time, but at least for all the replays you've seen so far, this is another very rare case where the new Pokemon can beat pretty much everything in OU, except Jolteon. That's not entirely accurate, because you saw the Tauros, Snorlax, and... Or you see a few replays, it's not the same thing, but... All in all, Jolteon can put up a decent fight. And Jinx has special drops, it has Blizzard. This is under the assumption that something else is put to sleep. It's just the Alakazam thing, but worse, because Jinx does not have a rival recovery. Not to mention, if Aggron has Rock Slide, it does even better. I don't have much else to say. Jinx got lucky there were 2 crits in a row and a special drop. But I'd say this is also a great matchup, because even if you get crits, why would you have your Jinx stay in anyways? That's just not a good plan at all. And if the Aggron is put to sleep or something, it can even just stall out those blizzards and you don't have to worry about being frozen. With Ice Beam, or even Surf, this matchup becomes significantly better. But at the very least, you're faster, so you can 3-hit KO, which is pretty nice. Granted, you probably don't have an opportunity to rest unless something is paralyzed, but still, pretty good, I would say. I don't know if Ice Beam is a guaranteed 2-hit KO, though. I don't think so, because I think I tested that with the original Aggron video. And for Swellbro, that was a misclick, unfortunately. But in case you're wondering, Thunder does about a third. So, the only hope Aggron has here is to fish for a crit with Thunder. Which, to be fair, it might be able to get a few times. But on the bright side, it can paralyze Slowbro too, which is very annoying. And it can have some opportunities where it paralyzes Slowbro first, and maybe gets a crit, or just a lot of damage. This might be a bad matchup, but I'm honestly leaning towards it being could go either way. If Slowbro gets those amnesias up, Thunder can do practically nothing. Not to mention at max special, it does OHKO Aggron. At the same time, it's not unlikely that Aggron does well in the beginning. Paralyzed Slowbro either gets a free turn, or it can do a lot of damage without a special boost. Like I said, does about a third. And if it does that much, then Slowbro will be forced to rest, which can give Aggron some chances to fish for crits. Not reliable, especially not with Thunder, but I really don't want to put in bad matchup. Though you guys in the comments could definitely convince me it is. We'll have to see. Alright, next up, Aggron versus Starmie. The third bulkiest Pokemon in the format. Unless you would rather say it's Alakazam, but I'm pretty sure it's Starmie. Thunderbolt does decent damage. Thunder is a 3-hit KO. So unlike Cloyster, it is still your best option, to be honest. But it's a lot more annoying. To the point where I'd say it's a bad matchup. Granted, you resist Psychic, you resist Blizzard. And Blizzard, it is legitimately good. But Psychic can get special drops. And if you get a special drop with Thunder, you just have no way of hurting Starmie anymore. Starmie can always keep going for Recover until you're fully paralyzed. Or until you miss Thunder, which is not the most unlikely thing in the world. And last but not least, we got Zapdos. And Zapdos can paralyze you. You can paralyze it right back. Didn't bother checking out Rock Slide since I think Rock Slide just won't be popular. So Thunderbolt is a 3-hit KO, while Ice Beam is a 4-hit KO. It's a pretty bad matchup, in all things considered. But you can do decent damage to the Zapdos. So it's bad, but I don't think there's a single Pokemon that I can say is unwinnable against Aggron. Which makes sense. So overall, here's the tier list. For Pokemon that on paper sounds completely unstoppable, I say this is a really generous tier list, with a lot of stuff being it could go either way. But it's just kind of how it is for walls. Typically, walls are not supposed to be super big offensive threats. So that's why I'm kind of glad Aggron does not keep its rock dual typing, like regular Aggron. Because I think it's a lot more fair if it does have stab. It can hit decently hard, and it has decent coverage, but it's not going to do a lot of damage. Not the same as a Bolt Beam Chansey will, which I think balances it out a lot. It definitely becomes a better tank than Rhydon as a normal resist, but Rhydon doesn't get completely outclassed because that ground typing is huge for Zapdos. So overall, pretty good. But I don't think it's good enough to where it would be going to Ubers. Although it definitely would be good in Ubers. I can imagine it annoying Mewtwo a little bit. Though Mewtwo, even with just Psychic, can eventually wear it down with Amnesia Boost. But so interesting. What do you guys think? Do you think Mega Aggron would be too much for Gen 1 OU? Are there any other Pokemon you'd like me to go over? Not gonna lie, I was gonna do Scizor, but I think doing 2 stereotypes in a row is kind of redundant. So I don't know what I'm gonna do for tomorrow's video. Let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll definitely consider it. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.